Hey all, and welcome back to Fuzzy Ducksy Gaming and the next installment of the Laidback Exile series. Now this is going to be the last one where you see the Charge Dash Trickster, and after this I'm tempted to just completely reset and start again in SSF and try Lightning Arrow Deadeye. The reason for it is just been watching a lot of Havoc's runs that he's put on his YouTube channel and it's making me want to try it. Now he's obviously in a totally different league to me, so I'm not expecting to get anywhere near his times or progression to be as smooth. But it looks fun, and it looks like the pinnacle bosses are definitely something that you can get done with a bit of farming for gear. So before we carry on with that, let's just go and talk about the Charge Dash Trickster for a little bit and just explain really while I'm finishing the character. So overall, I just started to get really frustrated with the skill in T16 maps, as there are problems that are inherent to the skill, and I don't think you can get past it to make the build consistently fun and reliable. So I got the character to level 90. It was geared pretty well. There was nothing amazing. We could have certainly farmed to get slightly better gear, but overall for an SSF character, it was geared pretty well. It could do T16 maps fairly comfortably, but bossing is not great single target wise, and mapping does feel clunky. There's a few bugs with the skill that at best are annoying and at worst are going to get you killed. So let's talk about the pros and cons that I've come across in my journey leveling up to 90. So we'll start with the pros, and just to let you know, this list is much shorter than the cons. So the main pro is with the Trickster Ascendancy, you don't have to worry about mana at all because you don't use mana for movement skills, and Charge Dash has the movement tag on it. We also get really good boost to movement speed increases and also our movement abilities. It is fun to play to an extent, and having the Herald of Ice Explosions proc is really satisfying, and while you're leveling up in the earlier tier maps where enemies aren't as tanky, it is pretty smooth and it does feel good. Third is it is super off meta. So if I did this in Trade League instead of SSF, stuff like enchants and a lot of specific gear, I'll be able to get really, really cheap. And then lastly, because the channel skill goes really, really quick attack speed wise, life gain on hit along with leech gives us insane regen. And a lot of the time, as long as you don't get one hit, you're going to stay alive against enemies, which is really the only saving grace in T16 maps is that I was able to trade with bosses and stand there and channel, which was pretty good because it would take 20-30 seconds to kill the boss with this skill anyway. If you add on top of that you couldn't stand still for long, it would make it really bad. However, this turns not into a negative, but it sort of totally goes when you get to like big bosses, because you're not going to be able to withstand one shots from certain enemies, or there's going to be degens that go on the ground that you've got to move from, and that's when the skill starts to fall apart a little bit. So that is it, in all honesty, for the pros. So let's move on to the cons. So even with increased AoE, clear is really inconsistent because the final explosion that you get from your Charge Dash, although you can scale it, I don't think without extra explosions you can scale it to an extent where you're just going to be able to go pack to pack and decimate like 15 to 20 enemies. A lot of the time when you map in, there'll be a couple of stragglers left. Yes, you don't have to go back and kill them. It just gets really annoying. The visual clarity is terrible with this skill. So when you're charging, you're going to have stuff all over the screen. When you dash, you have the same issue. And you can't see most of the time whether you're standing in a degen or whether you're standing in a telegraphed attack because your channel effects are sort of going all over the place. When you're under speed shrine effects, it gets really hard to target as the game seems to not be able to keep up with your input. So you'll channel one way and then suddenly your character will start dashing in another direction. And this sort of falls in line with the fact that it's a manual targeting skill, which is really annoying. And it does end up hurting your wrist because you're constantly channeling on and off, 50 to 60 times a map when you're going through packs and on bosses. And it does end up being really, really uncomfortable to play on your wrists. The gem has really low base damage. I don't think there's many gems with lower base damage. And you can definitely feel it when you start getting to the higher tier of maps. When I say the skill is clunky, it has a similar issue with Lightning Strike in that maps with objects and walls means you can't channel past two stages a lot of the time because you'll hit, you might hit a tree or a door or a corridor, and the less stages you channel, the less damage that you do. And without manually moving the projection around, which gets really annoying and pretty dangerous, some maps are just literally not unplayable, but you just wouldn't play half the maps in the game because it's just a chore to get through them. And then finally, there seems to be a bug that when you're targeting an enemy that either has phases or has immune phases or might teleport around, as soon as that enemy teleports or phases, your Charge Dash gets released whether you release the mouse button or not, And this can end up getting you killed because you might be targeting the enemy, he moves, you release, and you charge straight into like a degen or an enemy, or if it's Cirrus, you might go into a Cirrus cloud. I mean, overall, it just feels like a bad flicker strike, and it's not a skill I'm going to be rushing to revisit. It was one I had fun with a couple of leagues ago, but even with the fact that we're making the most really of the fact that Elusive and Nightblade are pretty broken, even with that, still doesn't feel great, and it's still a bit of a push to get the target damage consistently over like 1 to 1.5 million single target DPS. So to summarize, I certainly wouldn't recommend trying this skill out in SSF. In trade, you could make it work with currency, but you can't fix the overall bugginess and clunkiness of the skill. So in terms of this series, if I was to rate the characters, the Ballista character as a league starter gets 10 out of 10, 100%. For a league start character, takes little to no gear to get it doing T16s and the early bosses. It is pretty tanky once you get it geared, and it is actually really good fun and quite quick to map with. The Charge Dash Trickster, on the other hand, as expected, wasn't that great. I would give it a 4 out of 10, and that might be generous. The only reason I've given it marks at all is actually while you're progressing up to red maps, it is fun, and the issues that eventually come with the later tier maps don't really surface until you start to need more damage on packs and single target. The clear is okay at best, and single target is basically ass, especially when you combine it with the annoying targeting aspect of the skill. So let's move on and talk about why I want to restart the whole SSF progress in this series and on the next character. And it's mainly because the Explosive Arrow character is more than capable of clearing the majority of content in the game, and I don't really feel like I need or want to do this as I've done it in Trade League with my Lightning Strike Raider. I also, when I've had a little bit of a break from the game and I'm going to level another character, I actually just prefer to do a fresh start. I just find it easier to follow the progression of the character, and I do find it more fun, especially when I'm playing skills that I've never played before. The only reason I wouldn't do it is if I had a specific character that was not league start viable and I needed, crafting currency, or I needed specific end game items, then I would carry on the Explosive Arrow character to get that. But the next 2 playthroughs I've got in mind don't really need any specific gear, and the idea is really just to see how viable they are as a fresh league starter. So in terms of the series, what's next? First thing I'm going to do is bring back a timer, because without it, I feel that the series loses a bit of its purpose. And I also feel a bit lost because I'm not the sort of player that every time they stop playing the game, they exit the game. I'll leave it on when I'm working, just for no reason whatsoever, mainly because when I play trade, I'll just leave it on in case I get a trade offer. And again, I might go and make a cup of tea, have some dinner, and I'll just leave the game logged in. So I've not really got any way to monitor how long I've been on each character the way I've been doing this series so far. So the timer is coming back. I also find it helps me be a bit more focused, because if I can see a timer and I know roughly how quickly I'm expected to get, through the campaign and to white maps and to yellow maps, if I can see that that time is really, really getting ahead of where I want it to be, it focuses me and stops me slacking. So I think if I can find time, there's going to be 2 more fresh starts. First one, as I said, really, really been encouraged by Havoc's guides. It gives me something fresh to do, as I've never played a Lightning Arrow character. So the first one's going to be a Deadeye Lightning Arrow character, with the idea being to get, if I can, the first 3 Void Stones and the majority of the Atlas unlocked. Then, if I get that done, I might restart again and go with the good old Lightning Strike Raider, because I haven't done an SSF playthrough with it this league, and I normally do one every league. And as I said, the goal for both, nothing mega, just get 2 to 3 Void Stones, get the Atlas unlocked, and then whatever build I like most, if I've still got time left in the league, I'll pick that character and try and push them on a bit more. I will be coming back with more of the Hunting for Mageblood series. I just got pretty burnt out from logbooks. If I'm honest, I haven't been on the game much in the last week, but I did say that content would probably start to die down a little bit as we're getting towards, not the end of the league, but we're getting towards the point where, a lot of people are giving up or they've done what they already want to do. But I do plan on doing at least 3 to 4 more episodes, and I want to get through at least another 2k Astragali, so that maybe when the season finishes, we've either got our Mageblood or Headhunter or wherever it is we end up getting, or we've at least gambled 5,000 to 6,000 Astragali, so we've given it a good go. That's it for this video. Thank you very much for watching, and as always, take care, and I'll see you in the next video.